Hey everyone, welcome back to the Archangel 15. Thanks for stopping in as always. This is a rededication video to Peter Edward Rose, aka the Hit King, aka Charlie Hustle. I'd done one a while back, but wanted to incorporate some additional information. I'd found this magazine that my father had given me when I was very young, maybe 5 years old. It's a compendium of various newspaper clippings and articles from over the years of his career. I thought it would be of some great value to the presentation. I like it here, September 11th, 1895, kind of into the whole Matrix thing. That's when he broke Cobb's record. He would go on to be very often compared to Ty Cobb, but like I kind of want to embrace like the different generations of baseball. It really adds a lot of value to this presentation. I would say that there was like 3, maybe 4 main generations. You could have sub generations and so forth. Basically, like the late 1800s. Until like the early 1900s or so, like almost World War II era. Ty Cobb, others as well from that era, Honus Wagner, Babe Ruth, so forth. And then after that, you had like from Cobb's era up until like the early, maybe late 80s, early 90s, and in a very significant era in and of itself. And then, from the late 90s up to like current, and then you could almost say that we're going on to the 4th generation. The 3rd generation, is plagued by like, the strike and, the steroids era, and like the stats are just skewed. I mean, this, like, one of the main reasons I'm doing this is, just the whole, like, Cobb's hit record or hit streak was just elusive forever. I mean, nobody ever thought that it would be broken. And, from a pure stats standpoint, it's just an amazing, amazing feat. And like will probably never ever be done again. Whether we have baseball in a few years from now, whether it remains 162 games or not, it's important to note that when Pete Rose broke Cobb's record, he had 2,300 more at bats than Cobb did. I mean, like Cobb was just an amazing, amazing, amazing player. But again, there's a generational difference, and it's undeniable that the pitching was much, much better in Rose's era. So you really you can compare him, but you can't compare him. But the persona and the fight and the vigor and like the in-your-face attitude were both the same. I want to share with you here, this is the pride and joy of my sports card trading collection, my 2 1963 graded Pete Rose rookie cards. Older baseball cards have just a certain nostalgic feel to them, unlike the stuff from the 80s and 90s, just doesn't really come close. 63 is pretty old for cards. Also the year Kennedy died, but hopefully turns out to be a good investment. I kind of splurged on them a while back, and they're also the colors of the Ukrainian flag, which I really like as well. Here's a couple additional ones. Also noted that Pete Rose won Rookie of the Year in 1963. I'm going to go through some articles eventually here, but I wanted to, like I said, just also mention too that like Cobb died in 1961. Rose started in 63, so Cobb never knew who Pete Rose was, and it's almost like Rose was the reincarnate of Cobb or something. And Cobb never actually won a World Series. Rose would go on to win 3, but it's amazing. It's like one of the things that just baffle you about how it's possible that Cobb could never have won a World Series. Very, very controversial player. Used to get into like open fist fights with umpires, and like back in that era they would actually bring like tomatoes to the game and throw them at you, and like just a real amazing story. If you ever get a chance to watch the movie Cobb with Tommy Lee Jones, it's like a documentary on Tyrus Cobb. Great movie. I highly recommend it. I don't know if you can even find it anymore. And I'm gonna start going through some of these, try to expedite this here a little bit. Really interesting stuff. After reading this, here's from the game that he broke the record. It was like a really big deal. He did it in front of his home crowd. This is an interesting article. Growing up on the Ohio River, he was a river rat, fishing, just playing in the, swimming, fighting in the streets. Just all the kinds of normal stuff kids do, in that era. Made up his persona. And I want to also say, that this was before my time. And what I'm going on here is basically stuff that like my father had told me about, and from what he mentioned, he never ever left the field with a clean uniform. His uniform was just always covered in mud, every single game, and like the whole Charlie Hustle persona is what I really just embrace. I really like this picture I have his autograph. But like this is like he was known for his head first slides or dives, I guess you could say, and just it reminds me of like the statue of David, just that look of determination and like like free agency and just money have just destroyed baseball. Really, to be really honest with you, it just ruined the game, and like the strike wasn't good. Here's an interesting picture. This is him. You can see he's much smaller than like all of his teammates, and like he was not the biggest, he was not the strongest, he was not the fastest, but he was a real smart player. He loved the game, he knew the game, and he was persistent. And one article in here mentions that he was like he ran like the devil was chasing him, or like he was possessed by the devil or something. And this is how like the whole Charlie Hustle persona, came to light. And his father, I'm not sure if that's him or his uncle, played for the Cincinnati Bengals, and kind of brought up in the sports family as well. And like I want to just show a progression, like here as well. So like this is Rose, and when he first signed, $7,500 a year is what he made. So I mean, he was not making any serious money. Him and Johnny Bench, military uniform. He did Army Reserve work, some type of charity work. Another picture of him. Here's him holding the Rookie of the Year trophy, 1963. He also won, like I said, Rookie of the Year. And he would go on, like I said, to be very often him in a fight. He just brought it with that same Ty Cobb spirit. And I'm gonna go into some of the stats and stuff here shortly. But like I said, he would often be compared to Cobb, but like I said, there's not really a fair comparison there. Much different times. Like I said, the season was a little bit shorter. There's a picture of Cobb. He almost looks like Vladimir Putin, and he actually has lineage back to the Salem witch trials, also to George W. Bush, and like a couple other American presidents as well. I find to be of really, really great interest. And it's like I said, undeniable that the pitching was just much better in this current era of baseball that we have. So he started out with the Reds. He won 2 World Series in the 70s with the Big Red Machine. And he eventually, I think they won 3, the Big Red Machine, and he was part of 2 of them. And he went to the Phillies for a few years. And another one of these head first slide pictures I really like. And he won in 1980. He won another World Series with the Philadelphia Phillies. He'd end with 3, which is pretty good numbers. Pretty good for somebody of his repertoire. And he traded to the Expos, and that's where he got his 4,000th hit. And he and Cobb are the only members of the 4,000 hit club. And like I said, on September 11th, 1985, he would pass Ty Cobb, and he would go on to amass a total of 4,256 hits. And to this day, he's known as just the hit king, and one of the all-time greatest switch hitters in baseball history. In the first presentation, I'm gonna say, like I said, I want to correct. I think it was like 2 possessions or 3 positions that I said he played, but he actually played first base, left field, third base, second base, and right field, which is like, this is pretty much unheard of. If the people, like, players don't typically do that. Let's see some more diving pictures. Hardcore. And he knew his history. He never thought he was going to ever pass Cobb. Supposedly when he did, they gave him a statue or something like that. Like, he just loved the game and everything else. Had a great respect for the history of the game. And eventually he'd go on to coach the Reds. He finished out with the Reds and like I said, retired there. And he actually would go on to be a manager. And before I get into that and everything else, here's some of the stats. I want to mention a few of them. So he also would attempt to challenge Joe DiMaggio's all-time hit streak record at 56 games, which to this day is still the all-time record. Amazing feat there. He got 44, which is like 3rd on the list, I'm pretty sure. And so like Pete Rose, all-time games leader, 3,476 games, like the all-time leader there. Hits, all-time leader. At-bats, all-time leader. doubles, I believe he's like, this is older, but he was second at the time of this, and he really up there in runs, total bases, extra base hits, base on balls, and batting average. He's not. Ty Cobb had 367, which is like amazing. I don't like I said, Ty Cobb just had some amazing stats. And Pete Rose didn't really strike out a whole lot as well. It's very notable. Like a lot of players that get a lot of hits also get a lot of strikeouts. And like I said, he was very, very, very smart and didn't strike out. And I showed how he made $7,500 a year, and then eventually, he progressed. And you see him here driving the Rolls Royce. And the people they questioned whether he should bring it to the game or whatever. He said, I worked hard for this. And here's him with his brother at the track. And he was quite an avid gambler. Probably a friend of Donald Trump, which I'm not really too fond of that. I mean, there's probably a connection there. But Pete Rose, like I said, I really believe he was blackballed, and the whole Dowd report thing was like a CIA hit piece against him. Here's him on the Wheaties box. He had a sponsorship with Mizuno, would go to Japan once a year. And, the rest is history. Last time I heard, he's married to a beautiful Asian woman and has a kid with her. He has one son, Pete Rose Jr., played baseball, I want to say for the Reds as well. Never, lived up to, the numbers of his dad or anything even close. I find it to be very interesting, the whole September 11th, Matrix thing as well. And this is after 4,192. Big deal if you're a baseball fan like I am. I'm not really fond of the modern game, to be honest with you. I couldn't even tell you, the players from my hometown team or anything like that. It just doesn't really interest me anymore. Like I said, you just don't see the fire and the passion, and there's these guys making millions and millions of dollars. It ruins it. It absolutely just ruins it. And he was greatly respected by his peers in baseball and the legends. Johnny Bench, I think, said he doesn't believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I think up until Hank Aaron's death, Hank Aaron didn't think he belonged in the Hall of Fame either. Hank Aaron, probably the best all-time stats player in all of baseball. After he died, I looked at his stats. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing stats Hank Aaron had, and it just amazes me how he only had one World Series. Rose had 3, and Rose. It was just something about him. He brought this energy where he elevated the other players on his team. Like I said, he wasn't the best, by far. He wasn't a slugger, but he elevated everybody else just with his energy and his hustle. And this is vital to a winning team. And just great interest me. He batted first or second. The leadoff position, which he didn't get as many RBIs. He probably would have had a lot more RBIs if he batted cleanup or later in the order, as did Hank Aaron. But his record is untouchable up until this day. Like I said, Pujols was the closest player, and he's not even close whatsoever. There's nobody else even near any of them. Like I said, this will go down, for many, many years, probably the rest of my life, as an untouchable record, as it was to when the thought of Pete Rose breaking it. And so then, the Dowd report, like I said, he was a manager. He got accused of betting on baseball. The whole Dowd report thing you can look into yourself. I think it was a CIA hit piece. He was so charismatic and so loved by everybody. He brought this, what he brought to baseball that it was a much bigger spectator sport back then than it was now. And now other things have kind of taken over football. Other things like NASCAR as well. But baseball used to be it, pretty much. And he could have probably been a politician, or probably called a lot of politicians out on their lies, or been a real bit lightning rod in the political sphere. And they knew this, and they had to stop him. And this is why they did this. He actually even served some time in jail for income tax evasion, for not claiming money on his horse racing wins and his horse and his autograph signing fees or something like this as well. So he served some time in jail. Real hardcore dude. And another reason I did this is because if you look at the modern Hall of Fame ballots out there and the players that are coming up to be inducted, it's an absolute joke. I mean, nobody even close to his caliber. And half the ones that are deeply embedded in this steroid era. So it's you know, it's the whole thing is a mess. It's really really sad what's happened to the game, and you know, hopefully in the future, you know, the rights will be wronged, and or the wrongs will be righted, or I guess you could say, and everything will turn around. And you know, like I said, I would just give to see players of this caliber come back and with this much heart and passion to the game, and kind of like I said, a dying era, I guess you could say. But this is pretty much everything I wanted to encompass in this. Like I said, it's an updated one. I'm going to delete my other one and you know, reposition this. And if you're here, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for stopping in on the Archangel 15. Take care, folks.